Hello and welcome to Food and Dine. This is a Top Chef podcast. My name is Quiche.
And my name is Gnocchi. And this week we will be talking about Top Chef Season 21, Episode 13, Set Sail. And in this episode, there was a quickfire. For the quickfire, the chef testants were asked to make or create dishes combining fish and cheese. The winner of the quickfire was Dan.
Woohoo!
There was also an elimination challenge. For the elimination challenge, the chef testants were asked to work together as a group to create an 8-course tasting menu. And Danny, air quotes, won the elimination challenge?
Question mark.
We'll come back to that. The chef testant who was asked to walk the plank and go home
Ooh, nice. nice.
was our former Lady of Darkness, Laura. Goodbye, Laura.
Goodbye, Laura. It was such a quick time to Last Chance Kitchen, back in again, and then back out again.
And with the recap out of the way, very briefly, Quiche, what did you think of this episode?
Well, Curacao is beautiful, but the stakes are higher and higher, so it might be a beautiful background, but the stress levels are getting unhealthy.
Pasta pressy, you might say?
Oh yeah, a little pasta pressy.
Well, I have a Top Chef baggage check, if I may.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, we had to take a flight to Curacao, had to get there somehow, so bring that on the plane, let's go.
I have a couple of small bags.
Some vacation totes.
Yes! I have some vacation totes. Or carry-on, depending on what you say.
Okay.
Guest judge Ed Lee, love to see him. He was originally on the very accursed Top Chef Texas, Season 9.
Yeah.
The legendary, infamous.
Heard a lot about that season.
The winner was a domestic abuser. The season was riddled with racist bullies. Infamous season. He was one of the highlights of that season. There are actually many good chefs who came out of that season. It's just too bad nobody ever wants to watch that season. But anyway, he was in that season, and also he was a guest judge on Season 16, Episode 10 of Top Chef Kentucky, where they had a challenge at Rupp Arena, the basketball stadium. He's one of the guest judges. Super fun. I have another bag, very small. It has to do with banana leaves.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Because they'll come up later in this episode, I believe, for reasons. So, Top Chef Season 2, Episode 12, one of the finalists was Elia, and she made a snapper steamed in tea leaves or banana leaves. Her dish was actually properly executed, very tasty. The issue was that she didn't meet the brief of the challenge, which was to bring Hawaiian flavors to whatever dish that she made.
Oh, okay.
And instead it was a bit too Mediterranean forward. So she actually used her tea leaves, her banana leaves, correctly. She came back for All Stars. That was Season 8 in New York. And in the very wonderful, iconic, I have mentioned this before, the episode called History Never Repeats, where the chef testants who came back, they were presented with the ingredients that got them sent home.
Oh, yeah. Oh, the mind game one. Yeah.
The very first episode of Season 8 All Stars, and they had to take those ingredients that sent them home and remake them into a dish that was not going to send them home. And wouldn't you know it, Elia, she takes those tea leaves, the banana leaves, she makes another snapper, she steams the fish. She does make a different dish. However, this time she does not execute it properly, and her fish comes out raw.
Ooh.
So she ends up being the first chef testant on Season 8 All Stars to go home.
That's really rough to be faced with the trials of the past and again not meet them. That's I feel bad.
And how brutal, because the first time she did actually execute her dish. It just wasn't Hawaiian flavor enough. How brutal to come back and then actually not execute properly at all.
Man, Top Chef is like, it's ruthless, man. It's absolutely ruthless.
It's the pasta press. And one little last bag.
Okay.
So it was wonderful to see Masaharu Morimoto as one of the guest judges on this episode.
Yes.
And he's actually been on Top Chef before. He was on Season 8. So again, All Stars, same season. Episode 15. It was called The Last Supper. So a table of very famous, accomplished chefs. So besides Morimoto, there was also Wolfgang Puck. There was also Michelle Bernstein and Melanie Dunea, who had written a book called The Last Supper, and it featured famous chefs and what they would want to have for their Last Supper. And so the chef testants were tasked with making the guest judges' Last Supper, and one of the guest judges was Morimoto on that episode.
Oh my goodness, that's a really good challenge.
Fantastic challenge, really great. And that's my Top Chef baggage check.
I'd say those are vacation totes. I'd say you're beach ready. You know, I think you're good.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you no need to pay $50 for the luggage check. You're fine.
Don't need to sneak these on.
No.
So, as mentioned previously, there was a quickfire challenge. The challenge was to combine lionfish and Gouda cheese together.
Honestly, is this the scariest challenge? Because it feels like the scariest challenge of the season so far. The scariest quickfire, by far.
What, a poisonous fish? Fish and cheese? What's so scary about that?
Oh yeah, no, nothing at all. No. McDonald's does the fillet of fish every year. That's fish and cheese, so this shouldn't be hard at all.
Right. I do love a good filet of fish. I don't care if it's not real fish, and I don't care if it's not real cheese. I still like it.
I don't even want to think about it. I just eat it.
They name-checked a dish, keshi yena, which is a Curacao main course dish, and it consists of a large round ball of cheese stuffed with spiced meat.
I mean, it sounds good.
Essentially, it is an inside-out croquette.
Oh, no. I didn't think about that.
Let's keep that in mind.
Oh.
Very quickly, I just want to mention there will be no quickfire effect for this episode because Kristen announced when announcing the challenge, the quickfire challenge, she announced that quickfires will no longer be taken into consideration for the eliminations.
I mean, hey, rules keep changing, I guess.
Alrighty then. There were some quickfire dishes. There was the return of the aguachile.
Oh my gosh, I thought we were done with that. I sincerely did. When I heard aguachile, I was like, what? What do you mean?
The return of the aguachile. Just when you thought it couldn't come back, just when you thought that Jedi was gone for good.
Oh my gosh. Yep, back and at it again.
And that aguachile came rolling hard back into this episode, brought cousins with him. That aguachile rolled up with 2 crudos. So
2 crudos. I love that. Excellent.
and then we got, well, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 variations on a croquette. But you know, it's the finals. Why not bring back the croquette?
I mean, hey, yeah, we're all feeling a little nostalgic. Let's jump on back to episode.
What was Take It Cheesy was episode 3 when half the chef testants made a croquette and this time all of them did. But you know, it's the finals.
It's a new country, you know? Try it again. It's a new country.
And hey, look, they did name check the national dish of Curacao.
They did.
Which is essentially an inside-out croquette. So, okay, all right, fine. Quick side note, I also thought it was funny that they didn't make the chef testants actually take apart their own fish because they were so worried about them hurting themselves.
Oh my gosh, yeah. For a second, they were like, oh yeah, it's got 9 poisonous spines. And I was like, are you kidding me? Are you really gonna do this to them? They just got to the new destination and now you're like, yeah, take apart that poisonous fish. Like, what? So thankfully, yeah, they didn't make them do that.
I personally would have loved to see it.
Oh my gosh. It was so funny because Danny was like, oh yeah, well that would be one way to eliminate one of us. It's like, oh my gosh.
Oh, I thought that was Dan who said that.
Oh, it was Dan. I'm so sorry, yeah.
No, all good. Because Danny also had a funny comment that we cannot repeat here because he used the F-bomb.
That's correct. Watch the episode.
Yeah, so Laura made a lionfish crudo with guava sauce. And okay, she didn't make a full-on croquette. Instead, she made croquette crumbles.
Okay, I take that.
Okay. She name-checked, so frico. So they name-checked that. Frico it's essentially the ancestor of the croquette. It's an Italian dish.
Oh.
Which is where croquettes come from.
Okay, yeah.
So basically, it's a first-generation croquette.
It's a first-generation croquette.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Her Gouda Crunch, her frico, was essentially a crumbled-up croquette. Yes.
Okay.
So that's what Laura made. Danny made a lionfish croquette with Gouda sauce and red cabbage slaw. There was too much batter. It wasn't a well-executed... You know what? In keeping in line with this season and the croquettes from episode 3, it was not a well-executed croquette.
Yeah, that's true. Croquettes just haven't been hitting right in this season.
Too much batter, not enough lionfish. And then, top of the quickfire, Savannah coming in with a crudo.
Yeah.
A lionfish crudo. Okay. A keshi yena inspired sauce. So someone did their homework.
Oh, yeah.
So at least one of the chef testants did a little research on Curacao. She used a gouda frico, chili oil. Her dish was tasty. Good job, Savannah. I'm going to give you half a clap.
It made me so nervous when, all the judges, they were like, what's that spiciness? And then they all opened their water bottles. I was like, oh no, is it too spicy for them? Are they gonna critique her for that? But they didn't say anything. It seemed to be well balanced. Also, that chili oil stuff she's using, that's the stuff that I mentioned in one of my what would Quiche do segments a few episodes back, because that stuff is so good. The chili crisp oil, oh my gosh, excellent.
So lovely to see her executing. She didn't look like she was at all handicapped by the ring on her finger or the cut she got.
Oh my gosh, I know. Girl is thriving. Oof.
Lovely to see. That was what I saw in the preview that I thought you might enjoy.
I love that. I thought that was so sweet. Like, first of all, they all come back looking well rested, which, bless, that's so needed. I'm so happy for them. But she comes back and she's engaged. She's done her research. She's ready to go. Like, I love that.
I was like, oh, this is going to be a good episode. Oh, that's what I thought at first.
Yeah. It was a rocky road, but we'll get there.
And then Dan brings out the classic. If you don't see it 6 or 7 times in a season, the return of the aguachile. Top aguachile.
Return of the aguachile. Top aguachile.
So a lionfish tartare, which is essentially, guess what? A kind of a crudo. Orange and Fresno aguachile, gouda, frico. So a little aguachile, a little croquette, boom. But he's never had a quickfire win. His only other win was he had to split for Restaurant Wars, and he had to split it 5 ways. And don't get me started on how unfair I thought that was.
Yeah.
Good for you, Dan. You finally win a quickfire. Good time to win.
Oh yeah, for sure. Oh my gosh.
Kewpie mayonnaise. Have you ever heard of Kewpie mayonnaise?
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
You have?
Yeah. It's a very popular, it's Japanese cuisine kind of thing. Kewpie mayo. I hear about it all the time and I'm like, oh, have I tried it? No. But do I want to? Absolutely.
Yeah. I never heard of it. I had to look it up and now I'm like, I obviously need to go to an Asian food store because I want to try. I already like mayonnaise anyway, so it's not going to be a leap for me probably to like Kewpie mayo.
Probably not. I've seen a lot of like cooked salmon and then you like, you mash up, not like mash up salmon like it's mush, but like, you separate it so it's like in chunks, kind of like tuna fish. And then you mix Kewpie mayo with it and then you can like, I've seen so many different things, even like down to bakes. So it's almost like a Japanese cuisine mixed with Midwestern casserole energy kind of thing, where there's like rice, there's the layer of salmon with the Kewpie mayo, and then there's furikake and like all this other stuff. It seems delightful. It seems like a really, really great thing to have as part of a dish. Tangent.
Yeah, no, this is another tangent too, is I didn't know this until I started watching Top Chef. Using mayonnaise to keep your proteins moist when you're baking them or roasting them. Slather on a layer of mayo.
I'd never heard of that. That's wild. I feel like I'd be scared to do that because I'm on the other side of the spectrum. I actually do not like mayonnaise very much at all. So, but I'm still excited about Kewpie mayo, but I would be scared to put a layer of mayonnaise on any food just because it's an intimidating thing for me.
Apparently it's a very popular Thanksgiving trick for keeping your turkeys moist.
Oh, that explains it. I don't like turkey, so
This begs the question, what would Quiche do?
Oh my goodness. When I said this sounds like the hardest quickfire, that's because I was thinking about it, and it is truly a difficult thing to navigate. Like fish and gouda, and not just that, like an invasive species fish, which like that doesn't mean anything in particular about the flavor. It just means it's from a location and it was brought over to a place and it's, doing stuff to the ecosystem. But like this is a fish that like it is dangerous fish and gouda. Like what do you want from me?
Hey, someone else is butchering this fish for you, so at least you don't have that fear.
That's true. I do get that. Apparently, lionfish has a sweet taste to it, so I can enjoy the benefits of that without worrying about being poisoned, which, honestly, I might want to be poisoned if I was faced with this quickfire challenge. Be like, can I just go to the hospital instead? I'm sorry. Like, I don't like this. And I looked it up and it said, wherever the spines touch on your skin, it'll be uncomfortable, it'll hurt for a few hours. I'm like, okay, a few hours. It's not gonna kill you. So, like, it would just get me out of the quickfire challenge. This is like me being a child in middle school being like, I wonder if I sort of broke a finger on the playground while playing, if I could just leave school for the rest of the day. Like, it can't be that bad. But anyway, I did a lot of thinking about this and I've come up with something I'm like okay with. I don't know if I'm necessarily like sold on it, but we'll see what you think. A lionfish sushi roll with julienne cucumbers and quick pickled julienne carrots, topped with a gouda, breadcrumb, and dried crushed wakame gratine.
What is wakame?
That is a type of seaweed. So there's a bunch of different kinds. This kind you commonly find in like miso soup and other like things like that. Usually it comes dehydrated, and it's like little dark green wiggly pieces of seaweed. And you rehydrate it, and then like you can put it in the soups or whatever. It has a very distinct flavor profile, different than nori, because nori's like thinner. When you have wakame and you rehydrate it, to me it's like just a little bit chewy. Like you gotta like kind of work a little bit to get through it. But what I'm thinking is if it's part of like a gratine and it's like kind of like paired with the breadcrumbs, so not rehydrating it obviously, but crushing it up and including it in a gratine is maybe a good way to go with it. I don't know.
I dig this.
Yeah, does it sound fancy enough to make it?
It does. It's not a croquette.
It's not a croquette.
It's not an aguachile.
Yeah.
If the lionfish is a little bit sweet and you got your little pickling, and then you have your little umami of the seaweed, and then you have the gouda sprinkles, you have a little texture, a little crunch. Sounds like you'd be hitting several parts of the palate, if not all of them.
Okay, thank you. I have my concerns about the wakame, just because I don't know how that would work fitting into a gratine. I don't know if anyone's ever done that, because I've looked it up and it doesn't seem like anyone's ever tried that. So it would definitely be a swing. So, but thank you. I appreciate that. You give me confidence in my dishes, Gnocchi. I appreciate that.
I feel like this is one, well, minus the lionfish, that you could potentially try and execute with a different fish.
Yeah, maybe I substitute it with like a different fish. See if it actually works out. I do have wakame in my cupboard, so I can use that up because I haven't been for a while.
Yeah, I can dig this. I don't think you'd be in the bottom. Not in this case.
Can I float somewhere in the middle? Is that okay? Is that
Yeah. You know, I mean, you're competing against 4 aguachiles and 4 croquettes. I feel you'd be in the middle.
Yeah. Well, as long as I'm not at the bottom, I'm okay.
I don't think you're in the bottom. No.
Thank you.
Because it sounds like you potentially did more research for this quickfire than everyone but Savannah.
She pulled out the stops. She really did. I will say I had time to learn what a lionfish was from the internet. They did get their little collegiate lecture about lionfish and everything, which I thought was really interesting. The fact that it's invasive, but it is still a good tasting fish. I thought that was good because you know how sometimes there's like an invasive species, but it does not taste good. And so what are you going to do with that? Like there's less incentive to hunt it and use it. So that was really cool. But overall, I'm going to be so honest. If I was putting myself in that exact cooking scenario, I don't know if they just hopped off their plane. They looked like they did. In the editing, they made it look like they just got here on their vacation. They gave them all drinks. There's water like crashing up over the side of the pier and onto their feet while they're cooking. I think I'd be too distracted to actually execute anything.
Mid, whether you like it or not, you're mid.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I do have a little note of dank.
Oh, okay.
Very briefly. They had a 6-week break. This has been confirmed. They don't always get a break. So they've been as long as 6 months, sometimes as long as 0. But in this case, they got 6 weeks. Typically what Chef Tesson's do in that time, besides rest and recharge, thankfully for Dan, and then Savannah got engaged. But also they take that time to research where they're going. So they do tell them before they go on the break where they're going. And so you would hope that they would have researched things like gouda, things like lionfish. And for example, one season they went to Jamaica and one of the Chef Tessons had clearly researched one of the festivals. It's called Junkanoo. They research all these culinary based things on the offhand chance they might have to know how to cook with it.
Oh.
And you can tell that Savannah, name checking this very random fish and cheese dish, she did her research. So the question, and this is a rhetorical question, it's like, did none of the other Chef Tessons do any research into fish dishes? Did they not think, well, we're going to a Caribbean island, we're going on a cruise, we're probably going to have to cook with fish. I'm back, it's been 6 weeks, I'm just going to make an aguachile and a croquette.
Ooh, when you put it that way, yeah.
And let's stick a pin in that because they're going to have to cook with fish for the elimination challenge.
Yes, they will.
Oh, yes. Yeah, so we'll come back to the whole, why didn't they practice fish dishes in their break? Because they had 6 weeks, which is that's a lifetime.
Yeah, I guess it is, honestly. If some of the seasons had a very quick turnaround, then yeah, it's a big chance for them to prep.
Yeah, like the All-Star season 17, they got 0. They went right from the United States to Italy. No time off.
Oh, gosh. No, thank you.
So for the quickfire, Quiche, did you have any tidbits?
I do have a tidbit. I think it was the funniest thing that Tom, Gail, and Kristen were all standing there. Everyone's looking great. Everyone's having a great time. They're like, here's some drinks. Here's some drinks for you guys. Enjoy. Welcome to paradise. And then they're like, your time starts now. And they all put their drinks down on the cobblestone and run to their stations. I'm like, what was the point of making those if you're not going to let them enjoy them? What is this?
I don't even think anyone took a sip.
No, I don't think so either.
Welcome to your curacao and also cook.
I know, yeah, get to work. It's like, oh, okay, great, thank you. I thought that was pretty hilarious. Sad for them, though. They could have enjoyed those drinks.
Hopefully later on they got to enjoy some drinks. But yeah, you don't really ever get to enjoy yourself on Top Chef. Just pro tip.
No.
The second you get to enjoy yourself, they're usually sending you into the kitchen immediately after.
Oh, gosh. True. Now, do you have any little tidbits that you enjoyed?
Just a couple. To quote Dan, me and these three goons.
That was so funny. Oh my gosh.
Dan has been rubbing some people the wrong way. I don't see it. I'm loving the vibe.
He's funny.
Yeah.
He's got it, he's...
I think it's just his dry Midwestern sense of humor. I'm here for it.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, I never get the vibe he's being offensive. This is a dry Midwestern sarcasm coming into play, folks. This is as mean as it gets. This is it.
If that's as mean as it gets, people, they should be thankful. They should be thankful.
Yeah. So Danny ran the New York Marathon in the 6-week break.
Oh my gosh, yeah. These people were like, okay, well then that's why he was not researching curacao. I mean, I can't say. He might have done his research, but they just didn't show that in the edit. We don't know for certain. But I mean, hey, congratulations on the New York Marathon. Jeez.
Pretty sure he didn't do any research, but yeah, he ran the marathon. Also, rhetorical question that doesn't necessarily have an answer. But do we know more about Danny's wife than we know about Danny?
Yes.
We're just talking about the edit here.
I mean, hey, what? Maybe that's all he was giving the people. Maybe he's just like a massive fan of his wife, which is great. I mean, hey, that's a green flag. That's a big green flag.
Fantastic.
And so the editors are like, if we can't learn anything about him, we might as well learn something about his personal life.
Typically in other seasons, by this time, you really get a sense of who they are as a chef. Not this season.
I've definitely gotten a sense for, now that you say it, for like other chefs, like obviously I spent a little too much time obsessing over Michelle, but from the show itself, I feel like I got a good fleshed out idea of who she is as a cook and like all these different things. Same thing with Savannah. I feel like it's very clear how she conducts herself and the way she approaches her work. And we also get some of that personal life stuff, so I can see that.
Yes, they've been the exception this season. The editors, for whatever reason, they haven't felt like giving us a storyline for these chef testants and telling us who they are. But I guess we're supposed to cheer for them anyway somehow, even though we don't know anything about them.
I don't know. Do they get really in depth in the past seasons?
Not necessarily in depth, but if you think about over the course of like 10, 12 episodes, and they usually do a much better job of doling out and really giving you a vibe for what each chef is. In former seasons, I can remember very clearly XYZ chef, like several chefs from many seasons, because the editors did such a good job of presenting them to you over the course of the season. This season, I know that Laura got a really potentially unfair villain edit, and that Danny's wife is a pastry chef, and that Michelle likes barbecue, and I think that's about all I know about the chef testants this season.
I was gonna say, I think my view might be a little bit skewed since we did our research beforehand, our stalker-esque CIA level research.
I am trying to separate that out. Exactly.
I was thinking about it now. I was like, well, I feel like I know a lot about them, but that's because we scoured the internet.
We did a lot of non-stalker level research.
Yeah, it's not at all. Not at all. Don't look into it.
I have one final little tidbit. It's maybe not so fun, but it's a little bit low-key. Maybe offensive is too strong of a word. That Top Chef this season has been omitting things that in previous seasons they would not necessarily omit. So, for example, they didn't explain why the Dutch brought Gouda cheese to Curacao centuries ago. It's because of colonialism and slavery.
Right, yeah.
And this is not a subject they've shied away from in the past. When they were in Charleston, they went to a plantation and they directly addressed it. I'm not saying they did a good job. They were very ham-fisted and awkward, but at least they addressed it. This season, they're just going to say, oh yeah, the Dutch brought Gouda cheese to Curacao. Okay, are you going to tell us why? No. I guess the sponsors don't want them to bring up the word slavery and colonialism, maybe?
That's interesting.
And this also, I never brought it up during the right way episode because at the time, the shine wasn't completely off this season for me.
Yeah.
In terms of the producers and the editors. But in the right way, if I know you did some research, so I don't know if you encountered this, but I bet you did. Maybe you didn't. But Taliesen was actually the site of a mass murder. Frank Lloyd Wright had a mistress, and they had children together. So air quotes, illegitimate children together. And the mistress and the illegitimate children were murdered in that house. And then that house, the original house, was burned down with other people in it. Other people in the household also died, was burned down. And so the building they actually went to in that episode, The Right Way, was actually not the original original Taliesen. It's rebuilt.
Oh no, I don't like that.
I guess the sponsors didn't want that brought up, and I guess the sponsors didn't want colonialism and slavery brought up.
Interesting.
Even though in previous seasons, Top Chef has not shied away from these things, they've at least mentioned it. No, this season, no, not going to mention it, not going to say anything.
That's interesting, because you also said, and I know we've talked about this before, but how there's more time in each episode.
Where is that 15 minutes going?
Yeah.
Where is that extra 15 minutes going? Because it's certainly not going to the chef's stories. It's not going to show us them cooking. It's not going to show judges' table. It's not going to show the true history of the places where they are.
You're like, I rest my case.
Moving on. I didn't want to spend too much time on it.
Okay, yes, yeah. Sorry, moving on. Yes, I'm flabbergasted. I'm just, oh my gosh. What an L. Okay, go ahead.
No. I realize I'm not giving you any time to process.
That's okay. I mean, hey, people were murdered in the house and it burned down with other people in it. What are you gonna do? How do you fit that in? Leave it out. It's fine.
If I was one of the chef testants and I learned that after the fact, I would be so horrified to know that I spent so much time in that building. I'd be even though it's rebuilt, I would be utterly horrified.
Yeah, it's like visiting a place that has a dark history, because it does. Ugh.
So there was an elimination challenge.
Yes.
The chef testants had to work together as a group to create an 8-course fish tasting menu. They were each responsible, since there's 4 chef testants, they each had to cook 2 of the 8 courses. Each course had to feature a different fish, and each had to be prepared in a very specific way. So raw, steamed, mousse, poached, fried, roasted, smoked, and blackened. Those were the 8 preparations. You know, the one who got raw. Woo! But they're glad they got that one because, well, we'll get to it. So they had 2.5 hours to prep and cook. They were provided with a pantry of ingredients, but they also got $100 and 10 minutes to shop at a Venezuelan floating market. 10 minutes. Oh, okay.
That's so fast. I can barely create a shopping list in 10 minutes. I don't know how they send these chefs off to do this in 10 minutes.
I thought the farmer's market thing was a little bit wild, but 10 minutes. Okay.
I guess the crews had a set time. They were leaving the docks, so they had to do it.
So, in case you forgot, Savannah won the last elimination challenge, so she got an advantage this episode, which means she got the first choice of fish and the first choice of how she wanted to prepare them. That was her advantage. And so, we come to the dishes for the elimination challenge that the chef testants presented. And the air quotes winning dish, and I do mean air quotes winning dish, was made by Danny. He had the least worst of the worst dishes. Typically by this point in the season, Tom was raving about this is the best food we've had all season. This is amazing. This is wonderful. Usually the winning dish is the best of the best. And someone who goes home from making a good dish. That's usually what happens in the finals, where they're splitting hairs. For example, when Elia went home for her Mediterranean forward fish.
Okay, yeah.
Perfectly executed. They loved the dish, but it wasn't Hawaiian forward. That's typically what happens in the finals. You make a great dish, but they're splitting hairs at this point. You're going to go home for a good dish. But, season 21, they're doing things differently. The least worst dish won. So Danny, he made a smoked rainbow trout, plantain pumpkin puree, hazelnut lemon relish, and they loved the relish. Gail loved that relish. She was all about it. He managed to successfully smoke a fish. They were really excited that they finally got a fish dish that was actually properly cooked. Yay.
It's exciting. Now that I think about it, there's been a little bit of struggle with fish over this season, generally.
Yeah. So, Danny's second dish, sea bream mousse. Yet another mousse from Danny. This is the 4th or 5th time? 4th time we've seen a mousse from him? I've lost count.
I think so. It seems like it.
Another seafood mousse from Danny. This one he fails. This one he served raw. Yet he still managed to win the challenge. And that's why I put his win in air quotes. He still managed to win with a raw seafood dish. Raw. That wasn't supposed to be raw.
Yeah.
I guess he won because they loved his garlic spheres.
But it's not the main point of the dish.
It's pretty rare to win for a garnish. In fact, you never do. But he won for a garnish and for properly smoking a fish. But apparently you can serve a raw fish dish on Top Chef. This is the new thing. This has never happened before, and you can still win. Never happened before.
Well, you learn something new every day.
Apparently, if everyone else does badly enough, you can win with raw fish.
You gotta bank on that, though. You gotta bank on everyone doing badly then.
Yeah, well, I guess he took a look back at the season and goes, well, no one knows how to cook fish, so I got this.
Oh, gosh.
Who got sent home? Who had to walk the plank? Well, Laura, worst of the worst. Not, oh, you made a good dish, but we're splitting hairs and you're going home for a good dish. No. Laura chose to serve a raw fish and her other fish, which was properly cooked, but was flavored with dirt because she didn't wash her banana leaves. You had a 6-week break. This cannot be the first time you've ever used banana leaves. You're from Mexico. You've worked at multiple Michelin star restaurants. You've worked around the world. This is not your first banana leaf. Why didn't you wash your banana leaves, Laura? Why?
Yeah. Isn't this also something she said that she like grew up? This was like part of her culinary experience in her childhood growing up. Like, this is a item that is present in the kitchen. It's something that's, so I feel like you would know to do the cleaning and how to do it properly. Maybe do you think it was like a time thing? Like she just ran out of time for it, or what do you think?
Wasn't a problem for Elia. Banana leaves have been used many times in Top Chef history. This is literally the first time in 21 seasons someone has decided not to wash their banana leaves. And I'm not a chef, but I gotta tell you, I would know to wash my produce before I used it.
It is kind of important, yeah.
You maybe have a different perspective on it, on washing your produce before you use it. Maybe? Do you?
Not really. I like to wash my produce before I use it. Yeah, I do that.
And also, you know, as you pointed out, she grew up with this. She grew up with wrapping things in leaves. But, you know, maybe they don't wash them in her particular house. Because everyone I know who's ever come out of Mexico as a chef, they wash their banana leaves. But maybe her household did some things differently. Maybe they like the flavor of dirt.
I don't know about that.
So we get one properly cooked fish, but, you know, if only she hadn't wrapped it in dirt. Good grief, Laura. Good grief. I don't really have a whole lot to say. Oh, sorry. Okay. The worst of the worst was her grouper with guajillo, pepper glaze, guajillo, XO emulsion, and pineapple broth. Her raw fish, her aioli sauce split, fish cooking, and aioli for a chef. Not even a top chef. That's cooking 101. That's culinary student. Just saying. For an aioli to split.
Just putting that out there.
I can make an aioli that won't split. I'm sure you can make an aioli that won't split. How does your aioli split? Laura, what is going on? You had a 6-week break. Whatever. Moving on. So the rest of the worst Final 4 elimination dishes in Top Chef history. Literally the worst Final 4 dishes in Top Chef history. And we're going to talk about it. So, Savannah, rest of the worst. Now, Savannah, I'm not saying that she should have won this challenge. I'm not saying that. But she's literally the only one who didn't serve inedible food. And yet she somehow did not win. Manny slid through all season long with uncreative, mediocre, middle-of-the-road dishes. All season long, he slid through.
That is part of my former team you are talking about, Gnocchi. What are you doing? Slander?
Manny got to stay episode after episode over other chef testants. Episode after episode, his chips and dip. He got to stay, but
that's true.
Look, yes, she got to stay, so I guess she was the Manny for this episode. But honestly,
I don't know.
I'm not saying she should have won, but she's the only one who didn't serve inedible food.
Yeah, like the fish was cooked properly. It was not raw. It was not overcooked. I mean, it was not raw when it was like not supposed to be raw. Obviously, raw was one of her preparations, so.
Oh, yeah. So that one was a gimme. Savannah made a sake cured salmon roll, salmon tartare, twice fried plantain, and ginger dressing. Her dressing was gritty, grainy. Savannah.
That was such a sad moment because, well, she did that intentionally because she wanted texture in it, and then Tom just did not like that. Like, there was that moment, they put it on film where she had that all strained out, and then she was like, and I'm gonna put this back in for texture.
Savannah.
To give it body. Well, I mean, how are you gonna know? Okay, question. How do you like your orange juice?
I do like pulp. I know it's controversial.
I do like pulp too. I like it too. I prefer it. So I'm wondering, I'm like, is this a culinary technique thing right here that it's like, oh, this was like bad in terms of like, you're never supposed to do this? Or is this a preference thing where it's like, Tom's like, I don't like that, but it's something that you can do? That's what I'm wondering.
Thank you for bringing that up because this actually reminds me of Top Chef. I want to say, was it All Stars or was it? No, it was Top Chef Kentucky. Eric Ajapong, who many pegged to win, who many thought should have won. He wasn't eliminated over this dish, but he made a dish that had a grit to it that the judges did not appreciate. However, that is actually how the dish is supposed to be because he cooked with a lot of West African flavors. And so it was supposed to have this kind of grit to it. And the judges just did not like it. And so I don't want to ding Savannah too hard because you're essentially right. She tried something that the judges just didn't like. So it wasn't necessarily poor execution. They just didn't like it. They didn't want grit in their sauce. sauce. And arguably, there are other ways she could have gotten texture into her dish than putting in the sauce. Arguably. And just really quickly, a fudamaki, which I had to look up, is a Japanese sushi roll, which is a long, thick cylinder. I did not know that.
Oh, nice. I didn't know that either.
That was her inspiration.
I like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it did look very good. It looked tasty, so.
Yeah, minus the grainy sauce. I might have gone for that. Yeah, because I too probably would not have liked the grain in my sauce. Since that's just, yeah. And I can understand why the judges maybe didn't appreciate Eric Ajapong with the gritty texture that he presented. But I can also see why many people thought, hey, this is really unfair because that's actually how the dish is supposed to be.
Yeah, it kind of brings us back to that conversation of decolonizing the culinary sphere, which is like, yeah.
Her second dish was fried striped bass baguette with pepper kosho and ahi amarillo aioli. And what happened, Savannah? Because honestly, this could have been a good dish. It just was the proportions were off. But again, she didn't necessarily really do anything wrong.
Right.
Not really. And because of the proportions, her dish was a little bit dry. But she didn't really do anything wrong. How did she not win over dishes that were inedible? That's why I put Danny's win in air quotes, because he actually presented inedible food. And when he was trying to say that he was making fish balls, he didn't even... Moving on. Dan, the rest of the worst.
Dan the man.
Dan presents a raw fish. His raw poached dorade with coconut turmeric, yuca fritter, grilled pumpkin, and chili garlic crisp. I mean, this sounds good on paper.
It sounds delicious.
Chili crisp, like you say. Sign me up. I'm in.
Gorgeous.
Raw. They did like his use of spices, but raw.
Yeah, it's hard when the assignment that you're given is poached. So cooked.
I wish I had had the time to go through, because this happens every season, multiple episodes where Chef Tessence will go, they loved my dish. They really loved it.
That was heartbreaking. Oh my gosh.
This is not unique to Dan. This happens every season.
It's not. Oh my gosh.
More than one episode. I didn't even bother. Like, it happens so frequently.
Oh.
Where they misread what the judges are doing. In this case, my guess is the judges were trying to figure out what the heck he did. They certainly weren't sopping it up, Dan. No.
Yikes. Oh.
They were not into your raw fish. No. Tom.
Again, ruthless.
Not into your raw fish.
Yeah, he wasn't. His energy is fully focused. The feedback he's giving, oh my gosh. But at this point, if it's supposed to be poached and it comes out raw, if things aren't to their liking, it's warranted. His critiques are warranted.
Kristen and Tom and Gail having to apologize. Can you imagine the mortification and embarrassment? They are there with the sponsors of the episode. These are the finalists that they have selected.
Oh, yeah.
These are the air quotes best chefs of the season. And they all of them, with the exception of Savannah, produce inedible food. All of them. Savannah's only crime was lack of creativity. That was Savannah's crime. Everyone else, inedible.
Yeah. I mean, in fairness, it's unfortunate for the people at the table who aren't the three main judges, but it made for some really good television, I will say, because they were like, I'm sorry about this. They must just be nervous and stressed. I'm like, oh my gosh, they're nervous. They're stressed. It's a new place. It's a new location. And I was like, oh my gosh, they're going through it so much. It made me a little more invested in like where they're at right now. Like, it's not just they got 6 weeks off and now they're back and they're better than ever. It's they got 6 weeks off and now it feels like starting over almost. Like you're beginning Top Chef again, which means like you're gonna have to go through it all again, like the progression, but so fast.
Yeah, season 21 is doing everything differently. Literally everything. We're gonna have our first ever apologizing for the finalists. First ever.
Well, yeah, they had first ever Cheese Fest, first ever. They're doing the firsts.
So many firsts.
They're doing the firsts.
So the second least worst of the elimination, produced by Dan. So he did manage to cook one thing correctly. Yay! And his blackening, the Cajun style.
With the 5 spice? Yeah.
Yeah, this sounds like something I would want to try. Kristen, with relief, goes, this is the best cooked piece of fish we've gotten. That's right, Kristen, because no one else actually cooked their fish properly. Yes. So second least worst of the elimination, Dan. Which, yeah, I did think it was funny. Double D.
We keep coming up with fun names here.
Danny and Dan made it to the finals with inedible food. Okay. Wow. And Dan snapping about the mandarin oranges.
Oh my gosh, yeah. He has a right to. Like, they're in time pressure, you know. He's like, did you want to hop in the kitchen in and help me? I didn't see you offering your hand. So yeah, you're going to get that many.
I do like Dan. I know I'm ripping on these chef's testants, but I do like Dan quite a bit. And obviously Savannah. Danny, Laura, So this brings me to my note of dank. And I'm going to clock the time because I don't want to spend too much time on this. So I spent way too much time after this episode putting together yet another epic spreadsheet. And I didn't have time to do all 21 seasons. So in the Reddit, as you can imagine, the scholars at Reddit Academy lost their minds over how bad this episode was. Just lost their minds. This is the finale. This is the finale before the finale. This is literally the worst finale so far. We don't know what's going to happen next week in Top Chef history. Is phenomenally bad. Having to apologize for the chefs that you handpicked to be the finalists, phenomenally bad. But a lot of people in the Reddit have been defending these chef testers and going, look, this is the first post-pandemic season. During the pandemic, you obviously had an excellent crop of chef testants.
That's a good point.
You know, you had 2 all-star seasons. What do you expect? We're just back to regular Top Chef. This is like a regular season of Top Chef. And in my gut, I know that's wrong, but I didn't have any way to quantify that and argue back about that. And I don't actually get into arguments on Reddit, but to make a persuasive argument as to why this is the worst performing season of Top Chef. And these chef testants have been let down by a lot of things. Production, the editing, but I don't want to get off on a track here. I'm going to focus on how the chef testants have been performing, because in the Reddit, it's split between these are the worst and also no, these are just average. You've all been spoiled by pandemic and all-star seasons, because 17, 18, 19, and 20 were pandemic and or all-star seasons. So I went back and I looked at season 1, which is, no one questions that in terms of performance, it's the worst. That's the first season. It was awkward. They had home chefs. They had people who didn't have Michelin. Like, these were not the air quotes best of the best. The ones who won should have won.
Right. They were just getting started with it. Yeah.
Yeah. They're just getting started. So I was like, you know what? Let me take a look at season 1, because that's a good barometer, because inarguably the caliber of chef testants has increased over time. Like, you've gone from sous chefs to home cooks to legitimate executive chefs to legitimate owners of restaurant empires as competitors. So just the caliber has increased over the years. Like, coming in with James Beard Award nominations.
That's true. Yeah, that's a big deal.
So I said, okay, I'm going to look at season 1 as the baseline. And then I decided to look at, because I didn't have time to look at all 21 seasons, I said, okay, I'm going to look at the last before the pandemic, before the next all-star season. So I'm going to look at season 16, the last season in the modern era before the pandemic. And then I looked at season 20, which is the last season before this one, which was an all-star season and arguably still maybe a little bit post-pandemic-y a little bit. And then I looked at this season. So I looked at 4 seasons, 1, 16, 20, and 21. And because I had my insane spreadsheet, I already had season 21 blocked out in terms of how the chef testants had done. And when I was doing my breakdown of scoring, and again, this is a little bit arbitrary, but I didn't ding any chef testant if they just didn't meet the brief. I only focused on technical cooking errors. So not going to talk about the lack of creativity this season, which is also an issue. Not going to talk about store-bought things, which is also an issue. That's just not a common thing in later seasons of Top Chef for them to be buying store-bought ingredients. It's just not. Typically, for example, season 18 Portland, one of the chef testants made 100 sausages and 100 hot dog buns for an elimination challenge. She made those from scratch. Yet the reason why people were up in arms about sausage race is because literally the only chef testant who made their own sausage was Laura, and they only had to make it for like, what was it, 10 judges?
I think it was a few more than that. It was in the teens, but still, it's not 100. Yeah.
Sure. There are reasons why half of the Reddit, or maybe more than half of the Reddit, is up in arms over the performance of the chef testants this season. Strictly based on culinary performance. That's it. And so I went through and I scored based on if the judges dinged them for something, too salty, not salty enough, bland, this or that. And then I also had a separate category for major errors. So I included the major errors in the total number of errors, but major errors being raw, burned, really way over salty. Like if there's an extremely bad technical error. So there's 2 levels here. Because every season, no matter how good the chef testants are, the judges are going to find things to nitpick. They just are.
Yeah, that's the nature of it.
It's the nature of it. So people have been making the argument, hey, look, the number of errors or whatever is no different than, say, the last pre-pandemic season. And so if you look at season 16, total errors, again, this is only technical cooking errors, 72. And this season, 84. 34. That doesn't seem that far off. And then for all-stars, the number's significantly lower, 39. Okay, that makes sense. These are all-stars. These are people who've been through the Top Chef mill before. For the very first season, there's actually only 60. But again, there were like 4 fewer episodes, so maybe it all would have come out. So roughly the same number of culinary technical errors, roughly, except for the all-star season, which had a really low number, which unsurprising, right? But then if you look at the major errors, and this is a breakout, these are included in the total number, but this is just a breakout of the major errors. And you look at season 1, there are 0 major errors. Not a single chef testant burned anything. Not a single chef testant served raw food. Not a single one. Season 1, these are home cooks. These are sous chefs. These are people with not a single one committed a major culinary error. Not a single one. And that surprised me when I went back. That shocked me. Because I really expected to see something burnt, something raw, not a single one.
Right. No. Huh.
And this is not to say like when Kenny had his raw chicken in episode 1, that I would not have counted because he didn't serve it. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah.
So if you serve it to a judge, that's when I counted it. Then I looked at season 16. There was in that season 1 major culinary error. And that one major error, I went back and I looked, was one of the chef testants made a beef tartare. When he was making it, he was making an emulsion with the oil and you had to dribble it in. The lid fell off and into his emulsion, and he couldn't save it. And so technically that was a massive...
The lid?
Yeah, the lid just fell off and all of that went into his emulsion. It ruined the whole thing. He couldn't save it. So it was either not serve and not have a dish to serve, or serve it. He would have gone home either way. He ended up going home. Those kind of errors are painful to watch because really wasn't his fault. Someone didn't put the lid on tightly enough, whether it was him or somebody else. That lid wasn't on tight enough. So that major culinary error has a huge asterisk next to it. And if you discount that, since season 16 had 0 major culinary errors. 0.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Then we get to season 20 All-Stars. Now there's 5 major culinary errors. Some people had raw, some people had undercooked. There were major culinary, which actually kind of surprised me that there were that many in All-Star season. But the challenges were significantly harder, and no one will argue with that. For example, in the finale, they had to make not 1, not 2, but 3 Wellingtons.
Oh gosh.
Do you know what a Wellington is?
A complex dish.
How incredibly difficult it is to execute, where you have to have something wrapped in a puff pastry, incredibly difficult to execute. And they had to do 3. So wouldn't you know it, one of them, of the 3, it was raw. So there were 5 major culinary errors for the whole season last year, but one of those was in the finale, because I broke out whether any happened in the finale. And by finale, I mean the finale episode. So once they leave, like for example, they left Wisconsin, every episode after Wisconsin's what I'm counting. So that did happen in the finale, but honestly, 3 Wellingtons and one of them was raw. It is a huge error. There's no asterisk next to it, but yeah, they had to make 3 Wellingtons. So then we go to season 21. Inarguably, their challenges really haven't been that difficult. They've been bad. Like the fish boil, that was just a bad challenge. Kerosene boiled fish, that's a bad challenge. Wasn't hard, bad challenge. These chef testants, one of the things that's lighting up the Reddit is because these are not difficult things they're messing up on. Charlie overcooking his fish. Why, Charlie? Why? It's nonsensical. Fish cooking is a culinary, it's like poor Alicia's aguachile. It's culinary 101. If you can't cook a fish, what are you doing on the show? And yet episode after episode. So yes, their air quotes number of culinary errors look like the same, 84, 72, 60. Looks like it's on par with other seasons. But if you actually look closer, they're much worse. If you look at the major errors column, season 1, 0. Season 16, there's an asterisk next to it because the cap fell off of his oil. Season 20, yes, there's 5. Season 21, major cooking errors, 43.
Oh.
Almost half of the technical cooking errors have been major.
That's over half.
Thank you. The burned fish, the raw fish, whatever the heck Rossica made, Michelle's raw biscuits. And then in the finale, we're not even done with the finale, right? So we haven't calculated next week's episode yet. So just for one finale episode, 4 major cooking errors. And these are not Wellingtons they're having to make. They're just having to cook fish.
That's, ooh.
Once I broke it out like this, because people have been arguing going, oh, they're no worse than Kentucky. I look at Kentucky and only 1 major culinary error, and it really wasn't that chef testant's fault. They went home for it, but it wasn't their fault. This one, you can't argue that these weren't their fault. You didn't wash your leaves, Laura. You didn't wash them. This is the finals.
I wonder what's going on. I wonder why it's so different.
So when I say things like this is the worst season in Top Chef history, there are other worse seasons. Season 9, the race sexist bullying, season 1, inexperienced people who shouldn't have been on the show in the first place. Not worse in that sense, but worse in the sense that this is 21 seasons in. We are used to seeing errors, like not enough salt, a little bland. Errors like that happens all the time. But consistently, they've been burning fish. They've been serving raw food. They've been buying store-bought ingredients. This is something that we didn't even see in season 1.
That's scary. I don't know how to feel about your in-depth research here.
No, it was shocking to me when I actually added up. And keep in mind, I was being generous. Like, I didn't count Kenny's raw chicken because he didn't serve it.
Right, because he didn't serve it, yeah.
If I had counted that would be 44 and 85.
Yeah.
I didn't count it.
Ooh.
And then they got their 3rd pep talk of the season. That's also a Top Chef first. At most, if ever, pep talks almost never happen, but when they do, it's maybe once a season, and that's all they need to hear. They got one in Kristen's season. They got one, actually during Top Chef Kentucky, they got one. They got one. Colorado, they got one. This season, they got 3. No wonder they cut the 3rd one we never saw, because they knew there was going to be another one this episode. How many pep talks do we want to see this season?
I don't know. I felt like this one was somewhat justified.
No, they needed these pep talks. Clearly, there were more than one. They only showed us 2. But my guess is the reason they cut the one that we never saw is because it's rare to have one. I just name-checked the 3 seasons. I can recall them having a pep talk. One pep talk. And that's all they needed for the chef testants to get off their butts and cook. This season, they got 3. But these chef testants just keep failing. But yes, this was the 3rd pep talk of the season.
That's crazy.
And those first 2 fell on deaf ears, apparently. And after a 6-week break, and the really disappointing thing is they had a 6-week break. They don't always get a break.
I'm happy that they're getting more pep talks. I'm a person who thrives on positive reinforcement, so I'm like, oh my gosh, they only got 1 pep talk in the other seasons? No.
No, because they didn't need it. The thing is, it's like, no, it's good that they're getting pep talks. You always like to see it. You like to see Tom laying down the law and going, do better. And the thing is, in other seasons, they got those pep talks. They did better. This season, they got a pep talk. They didn't do any better. They got another pep talk, which they didn't show us. They didn't do any better. And now here they are in the finals, and they're getting yet another pep talk. We can only hope it has an impact on the next episode. But from what we're seeing, these pep talks have fallen on deaf ears.
I mean, it was ebbs and flows, because I feel like leading up to this point, we've had a series of like really good dishes. Have we not? Like,
do you want to see the spreadsheet I created?
Because even Kristen says it.
Do you want to see the spreadsheet?
I know the numbers don't lie, but Kristen said they've been cooking so well.
That line so rubbed me the wrong way, because if you look at the spreadsheet, it will show you that that's not true at all. There's a reason the number is 84, and there's a reason 43 of those are major cooking errors. No. Fish boil, was that really good cooking? Was it, Kristen?
No.
Was it? Was top croquette really good cooking? Was it? Was top aguachile? Was that?
She's choosing to be a positive queen, you know?
No, and I get it. Look, and again, I say all this in the context of the show, and none of this reflects on Kristen. No, she's an angel. These kids are ruining her prom, as I said, way back. I believe in Take It Cheesy, or possibly The Right Way. I don't remember which one. These kids are ruining her prom. But no, Kristen, chef's kiss. That's my note of dank.
All right.
Quiche, do you have any tidbits for the elimination?
Oh, I do. You know, we love Morimoto so much. He's great. And I loved this quote. This is going to be one of my last few quotes for this entire season. So I'm going to savor this one. He says, "This is a tuna pizza. It's good because I made it." Icon. Oh my gosh.
That was one of my tidbits.
Yeah. It's so fun. Yeah, he can own that because he's Chef Morimoto, Iron Chef Morimoto of Food Network fame. So yeah, that's his. I thought that was great.
The chef testants losing their minds, asking for his autograph, getting a meal cooked by him.
Oh my gosh. That was so sweet. Oh my gosh. I was wondering, I wonder how many of these chef testants are going to frame this and like hang it in their restaurant in the future. Like, I imagine that has to happen. At least one of them. It's got to happen. Either that or it's like a home decor piece, you know? Because like, you got Chef Morimoto's autograph. You're not just going to put that in the binder or in a file and like put it away. That is for display.
And he cooked for you and you got to eat it.
And he cooked for you? Oh my gosh. He was like, "Oh, sorry, I can't stick around, guys. But anyway, here's this incredible pizza I made." It's like, oh my gosh. This man, amazing.
I was a little bummed that he didn't stick around to judge the elimination.
I mean, he's got things to do. He's on the Holland America cruise line. He's got things.
Sure. Busy man. Things to do.
He's got fish to fry. He's got bigger fish to fry.
And when he does, he'll properly fry it.
There we go. Oh my gosh. So I do have one more tidbit. They made the chef testants swim with stingrays? They were forced to? Some of them, they really did not seem like they were enjoying it, but they're like, yeah, get in the water. My question is, how long did they have to stand in there with the stingrays? That's just a question. That's all.
That was one of my tidbits. And to answer your question, I'm guessing long enough to get good footage.
Oh my gosh, just depending on how stiff they are, that might have been a while.
Danny's quote, "Nature from a distance. This isn't for me."
I love that. Oh my gosh. He's like, yeah, no, I'm not into that. That's something that we learned about him. He does not like that. Got it.
Laura's saying they give you warm hugs.
A dangerous warm hugs. I would.
You know, Laura, stingrays killed the crocodile hunter. They don't give you warm hugs.
Are you talking about Steve Irwin?
Yes, he died by stingray.
He didn't hunt crocodiles, Gnocchi. He's a wildlife warrior. He was an ambassador for those who cannot speak for themselves. How dare you? He didn't kill crocodiles. Put some respect on his name. Oh my goodness.
Apologies. And also pouring out a little seawater for you because, yeah, they don't give you warm hugs. They kill you.
They don't, yeah, unfortunately. Since I managed to steal 2 of your tidbits, do you have any others?
Well, I had to look it up. A quinapa is a Spanish lime.
Okay. I mean, I didn't, I ended up not looking that up, and I guess my brain was like, yeah, that's a thing. It's like, I don't actually know what it is. Okay, a Spanish lime. How is that different from other limes?
It's a tropical fruit that has a sweet and slightly tart flavor, and you eat it by sucking on it like candy.
Interesting.
This is according to the Dark Culinary Web. I'm not saying this is correct.
The Dark Culinary Web? Oh no. This is where they give you the forbidden knowledge.
It has a silky texture, and it's surrounded by a thin layer of a jelly-like substance. Sounds very different than a lime.
It does. Is it just called a lime because it has a similar appearance?
Maybe? It has a lot of names, but Spanish lime is the only one I can correctly pronounce.
Honestly, yeah, that's fair. I got you.
I don't typically look up everything, but this episode I looked up a couple things.
Oh yeah, we're getting to the end of Top Chef, and I feel like there's obviously definitely, because I didn't go to the CIA, the Culinary Institute of America. So there's still stuff that I have no idea what it is, and I appreciate it when those things go over my head, but you catch them right up, you snatch them right up, and you explain them to me. You make sure I don't go without the knowledge, so thank you.
You're welcome, and those are my tidbits.
All right, thank you for that. Well, it is time to get into your favorite time of our Food and Dine podcast. It is snack time with HighSpeedDining. Woohoo! Well, it is time for snack time with HighSpeedDining.
Woohoo! I'm back. Yeah, I was going to say this is the most exciting time of the week for me. Not anymore. Watching Top Chef now has become one of the best things and highlights of my week. This week, I jumped right to it because I'm like, I got to know what's going on. It's getting fun, right? We're down to it. We've made it to the final episode. Wow.
Next week.
It's definitely getting crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
It was fun. I love the cruise ship stuff. I've never been on a cruise ship. Kind of funny. You would think I would have, but I get seasick, and I'm even afraid of something that big getting me seasick.
Yeah, I wouldn't feel comfortable. With that, being on a cruise ship. It just rubs me wrong. I don't like the idea.
No.
The boat's not turning around if you have a problem, and that's my problem.
Right.
Yeah, and post-pandemic, there's no part of a cruise that I want.
I did that once. I was in the Caribbean and was doing a half day of fishing. I was so excited. I knew I was going to get seasick, but I'm like, no, I'm going to make it through this one. I've got a patch. I got everything. And I hop on the boat, and within 3 minutes, I am just turning red in the face, and I was puking the whole trip. I touched a fishing rod for about 2 minutes. Like I couldn't handle it. And I just sat in the corner all balled up in a fetal position going, oh, let's hurry up and end. I wish I was in jail with a cellmate. That would be a lot more pleasant than this.
Oh my gosh.
It was awful. So I won't go on cruise ships. I'm just, God forbid.
Well, on that pleasant note, do you have a best bite for this week? HighSpeedDining?
It was fun watching everyone eat on the cruise ship, though. I do understand there's lots of different restaurants and so much going on there. And to have Chef Morimoto there, wow, what an honor. Everybody was super excited to eat there. I mean, I guess it's a real honor when you've got one of the original Iron Chefs and somebody with such a storied history.
Yeah, he was on the original Iron Chef out of Japan, and then he came over to the U.S. version as well.
That's awesome. I've eaten at his restaurant in Philadelphia. I guess he has 19 restaurants around the world now, and I think his Philly Morimoto restaurant was his first one that he opened in, I think, 2001. And I've eaten there several times, and I love the food. Everything he does is just mainstream flavors. Like it's everything you'd want out of a food. Sometimes chefs can get a little creative or push the boundaries, but he's going mainstream. You know, if you don't like sushi or you've really never eaten that type of food, you'll love this stuff because it's just the flavors really pop and they're just very enjoyable. In a Morimoto's type of place, you take a bite and you go, wow, that's even better than I would have imagined. It was fun to see him. He's never actually served me at his restaurant. Yeah, I was jealous in that aspect from this episode.
Did you have a favorite dish from his restaurant that you've had? Just something that stands out?
One of the things I always remember is the Wagyu beef you cook on a hot stone. That can be a popular thing at Japanese restaurants where they bring out just a steaming hot stone and you take a meat and slap it on it and it sizzles and it bubbles and it splatters oil all around because that's what happens. And you just have a great time cooking it and it smokes up your table. You walk out of there feeling like you just stood over a barbecue after that. It's a really tasty dish, but any type of his sushis, really flavored up, sauced up very nicely. You know, everything you get is just going to be really good. I have a funny story about one of my several visits from Philadelphia. I had just gone to another restaurant earlier for probably like an 8 o'clock reservation. So it was late in the evening and I finished it. But of course, I'm still hungry. And walking back to my hotel, I walked by Morimoto and I'm like, I want to go in here. It was 5 minutes after they seated their last group of people. And there's like, I'm sorry, we can't serve you. We can't serve. And I'm like, come on, I'll eat quick. No. And I may have felt like a big shot. Like, come on, I put out videos from you guys. They did great. I'm going to do some PR for you for free. And they compromised and said, we'll sell you some takeout food. I'm like, fine, I'll do it. And I got my takeout food, but at that point, a manager came out and said, you can eat your takeout food at the table. And I ate my takeout food at the table. I ate it very quick. I was still out of there before other people who were still eating. And I made a video out of it because I found it to be kind of funny. Told you I was going to be quick. And it turned out to be the best video I've done out of like 4 or 5 videos for Morimoto. It did over 500,000 views. And people were like, they let you sit there. Why wouldn't they let you actually order food there? It would have saved them some money on takeout containers.
Wow.
I don't know if that's truly my best bite, but it's a funny little story. And I guess the moral of the story is make a reservation. You know, I could have made the reservation if I realized in advance, but I walked by the Morimoto restaurant and I said, this food is so damn good. I got to go for it. So he's a great chef. He does great stuff. And I would recommend anybody stopping in at a Morimoto restaurant if they have a chance. Very popular in Philly.
Wow.
There's my best bite story of the week.
That's a good one. So if you have to choose, and you can only choose one, because I know you're up for the double D's, High Speed Dining, but you can only choose one between Dan, Danny, or Savannah. Who do you have pegged to win next week in the finals?
Well, you guys remember early on, you asked me who I was rooting for. And who did I say from day one because I liked the underdog? From day one.
Dan the man.
Yeah, I said Dan. So I'm obviously going to stick with my pick. I'm not a betting man, but I wish I put a bet down on this. You know, I guess you can probably put bets on anything in Vegas these days. Yeah, I'm sticking with Dan. I really feel strongly about him. He had a pretty solid week, winning the Quickfire challenge and I guess the overall challenge this week.
He didn't win overall, but he had one of the edible fish dishes.
Yeah, that's true. They've been doing great. I mean, this week was really tough, obviously, for everyone. For some reason, it threw them all for a loop. Yeah, it was interesting to watch, and you would think it's tough for somebody to butcher 2 things, but it actually happened a couple of times. So I'm rooting for Dan. Yeah, I'm going for Mr. Midwest.
All right. Quiche, you have to choose just one. Dan, Danny, or Savannah. Who are you picking to win tomorrow or next week?
I wish it was tomorrow. Oh my gosh. I don't know if the suspense, I don't know if I can stand it. I'm in Savannah's corner. I like what she's got going on. I think she's proven that she is very thoughtful with her research and the way that she approaches her dishes. And she said, like this was the wake-up call that she needed. There were some other chefs who got that like a little bit earlier in the season who, whether it worked out for them or didn't, they had those moments, but she's getting that now and I feel like she's going to take it in the right direction. So I'm trusting her with the cards. How about you?
Last week I was pulling for Dan. This week I think I might be a little bit more in Savannah's corner, and I guess that leaves Danny out in the cold.
Sorry, Danny.
Which means he's going to end up winning, right? That's how it works in our pool.
Perhaps. You never know.
This office pool's going south for us all.
I mean, if you look back at our predictions from last week, when we were saying who do we think the final 2 are going to be, none of us said Laura. And Laura did get eliminated in this last episode. So we're not totally slightly off track.
You're right.
Yeah, you really never know with what's going to happen here, so stick with what got you to the dance is what I'd like to say. And for me, with Dan being a Midwest guy, I've booked a trip to the Midwest this week. I may cancel it, but I started booking Minnesota. That is where I chose to go because it's just one of the big cities out there that I really wanted to see. There's some great restaurants out there, and one of the places I would go is Owami by the sous chef.
Yeah, he was one of the guest judges on the Good Land.
His restaurant is in Minnesota, Minneapolis, and I was looking at that to go try some great food. It's one of the more booked up dinner restaurants in town. But about 12 days from now, I would take off and go. I've never booked a trip this close. If it were a Michelin star city, you'd have to book it way further out because these restaurants sell out a lot more, and you have to go to the Michelin places. But this trip, you can just pick anywhere you want to go and just find some of the great ones. But I really wanted to get the Midwest in. Did this Milwaukee thing bring me in? Certainly didn't hurt. There's a lot of great food out there, it seems.
So yeah, he was one of the guest judges on the Good Land, who's one of the indigenous chefs. And I find it interesting that they had to go all the way to Minnesota to find an indigenous chef.
I think he's the biggest of the bunch, though. I mean, he's won, the James Beard, and he really has a lot of high honors. So he's the right guy to bring in to represent.
If you do make it to the Twin Cities, there's another Top Chef alum out there. He's also was one of the 3 on Fast Foodies, Justin Sutherland, the one who had the boating accident, Quiche.
Oh, yeah.
He's in Minnesota? Do you know the name of his place?
Handsome Hog, and he has a couple other places too.
Okay.
That's a fun name. Yeah. Depending on when the Minnesota State Fair is, you should definitely hit that up. They have some of the most iconic fair foods in the country, I think. They've got Martha's Cookies. You get a bucket of freshly baked chocolate chip cookies. They have a new thing. I don't know how new it is. It's a pickle spear wrapped in a piece of, I believe it was pastrami, which is slathered in cream cheese. And people are saying it's really good, so...
It's very Midwestern. It sounds good.
Gotta say.
And isn't the Minnesota State Fair the one that's famous for the butter carvings?
The butter people? Yes. You are correct.
Yes. All right. I thought so. They're literally world famous.
Did I say that with a little too much excitement? Maybe. We're gonna forget that.
That sounds like a fun thing, but I'm the kind of guy who tries to avoid the crowds and stuff like that because
Oh, yeah.
all the restaurants fill up when everyone comes to town for things. I know that the week I'll be in town, there's a Friday night, everything is booked up. That's the night I'll find a less popular place for things, but it's exciting. A lot of great food, it seems, in the Midwest, and it was nice to get insight into a lot of these things from out there. And, I now have a whole new love and joy for cranberries due to the Top Chef this season and indigenous food. I've been introduced to a lot of things with Top Chef season 21, so I'm hooked, bait, line, and sinker, like a lot of those fish this past week. Well, it's been fun. Another great week with you guys. We're down to one great week left, and I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do these nights that we record and what shows to start watching. There's only so much diners, drive-ins, and dives I can take. I need more Top Chef. Top Chef.
Yeah, we're gonna have to fill in our time with the Top Chef France, as dubbed by YouTube auto subtitles, and if you have Peacock, the original Iron Chef. So I guess that's where we'll be going after this. Who knows?
I'm now hungry to eat Peacock.
Oh no.
Who's got Peacock on the menu tonight?
That might fight back.
I gotta go find someone that's got exotic birds. I'll see you guys next week. Enjoy the final episode. Go Dan.
All right, we will see you next week, High Speed Dining. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank me.
Thank you. That was Snack Time with High Speed Dining, and we will look forward to having him one last time next week. Woohoo! Well, boy howdy, that was quite the episode in Curacao. I'm excited, I'm nervous, I'm scared, I'm hungry, I don't know what's going on, I'm nostalgic, and it's ending, and I'm confused. Is there a support group for this? Because I feel like I've lost a part of me, and we haven't even gotten the last episode yet. Oh my gosh. What are we gonna do?
I'd say the Reddit Academy, but I don't think you'd find it a very comforting place.
No? Okay, I'll stay away from there.
Because it'll just be more people like me, but a lot meaner.
Oh gosh.
Because I am trying to be nice about it.
I mean, when you break it down in your numbers, your charts don't lie. To all of our listeners, her charts are very thorough. They're very accurate.
They're way too much. My apologies. Oh my goodness. Yeah. So next week on, it's a 3-way finale.
I guess that answers one question,
Mm-hmm. It will be the 10th 3-way finale in Top Chef history.
Oh, okay.
Unless they Eric Adjupong them, by which I mean in his season, Top Chef Kentucky, they took them all to Macau. But then when it came to the finale, Eric only got to serve as appetizer. And then they eliminated him.
What? How does that make sense?
No, so in the finale, where we thought it was going to be a three-way finale, they pull the rug out from under them and they tell all three chef testants, you'll serve us your appetizer. The two we like the best will cook the rest of their meal.
Oh, okay. Ooh, that's kind of mean. That's a little underhanded right there.
So I really hope they don't Eric Ajapong them, who, by the way,
yeah,
many had pegged to win, and such a lovely man. He kind of reminds me of like Idris Elba's younger brother or cousin. Very handsome, great voice. He's got 2 shows he hosts now on Food Network.
Oh, wow. Okay. He's making it. Good.
Very happy for him. So in Top Chef history, so far to date, there have been 11 two-way finales and 9 three-way finales. So I guess this kind of evens the numbers. If they keep with 3, then this will be the 10th three-way finale.
Okay.
So I have a couple tasty morsels.
Oh, yes. Let's hear them.
So I was thrilled to discover this. I have not tested this, but I believe, do you have Peacock?
I do have Peacock.
If you would truly like to see old episodes of Iron Chef, the truly old ones, not the Food Network ones, or maybe those are on there too, although I wouldn't imagine Food Network would allow those to go on Peacock, but I'm talking about the ones imported from Japan. Allegedly, they are on Peacock.
Oh, they are? Oh, I didn't even look for them. I should look for them.
I strongly encourage you to check them out because I believe Morimoto is in all of the episodes, but you want to see some truly wild cooking. And according to backstage intel, a lot of the dishes actually wound up being inedible.
Oh, what?
Which is why the American version of Iron Chef is so different. It's because they wanted to have actually edible dishes.
Oh gosh, okay.
But just for sheer theater and just culinary techniques, I just didn't even know. It's fun.
Okay, yeah, I'll check that out.
Yeah, but if a dish probably sounds like it's not good, it probably wasn't good back then.
You're like, I don't know about that. And they're like, yeah, we didn't either, so we didn't eat it.
And then my other tasty morsel, this is a bit belated because I should have trotted this out for the Take It Cheesy episode, but maybe we were just so overwhelmed by the number of croquettes that we got, never got around to this tasty morsel. But
totally fair, yeah.
they cook with cheese this episode, so I'm bringing this out. This is the headline. Why did the U.S. government amass more than 1 billion pounds of cheese?
1 billion pounds of cheese.
1 billion. Yeah, I'll put the link to the article in the show notes because this is a very long article, just packed with facts that we just do not have time to relay here. But I'm just going to name a few, just for funsies. So in 1981, the federal government had 560 million pounds of cheese stored in vast subterranean storage facilities. That's 560 million pounds in 1981.
What?
Oh, yes. I'm just going to state facts. I'm just going to throw them at you. At that time, the interest and storage cost to the U.S. government was $1 million a day.
Oh my gosh.
In 1981 dollars. By 1984, they had 1.2 billion pounds of cheese, roughly 5 pounds of cheese for every American.
I'll take my 5 pounds, please. Thank you. I want that.
In America's defense, this article notes that China has a frozen pork reserve. Guess what Canada has?
Maple?
A strategic maple reserve.
Oh, yeah. Oh my gosh.
Europe, the European Union, has butter mountains, literal butter mountains.
Butter mountains?
I can't even mentally process.
Where are they putting these mountains?
I do not. They also have wine lakes. I would love to visit a wine lake.
Oh my gosh. A butter mountain and a wine lake?
And milk lakes, which I don't want to visit.
No, yeah.
But the wine lake? Where is this wine lake?
The wine lake, yeah. Is there a bread forest? Can I grab some bread, get some butter, and have some wine? Like, that sounds delightful. Oh my gosh. It's like Candyland, but a charcuterie board. What?
I don't want to think about the fact that there are literally billions of people starving in the world, and yet these things exist.
Oh my gosh, wait, yeah, you're right. Oh, jeez.
They exist to this day. So in the 1990s and the early 2000s, even though nutritionists were warning about saturated fats and rising obesity levels in the United States, this is the 1990s and the early aughts. So, we're getting into the present era. The USDA paid millions of dollars to fast food companies such as Taco Bell and Domino's to increase the amount of cheese on their menus by not 1, not 2, but 8-fold. 8 times the amount of cheese.
What?
In order to help consume some of our dairy reserves.
This is such an insidious cheese plan. What the heck?
Mm-hmm. Think about it. Wendy's dual double melt, our tax dollars paid for that.
Oh my gosh. I am... I might be mad about cheese now.
Taco Bell steak quesadilla? Oh yeah. That boosted sales of cheese by 30 million pounds.
Oh, Jeez.
All taxpayer funded.
That feels weird.
So not only when you go in, you get your Taco Bell, you've already paid for it with your taxes, and now you're paying for it again. And also you're buying yourself a little bite of obesity as well.
Ah.
But you know.
Ah. You're like, it's neither here nor there. It's there.
Despite this, in 2016, dairy farmers, because they couldn't sell it, dumped 43 million gallons of milk because they couldn't sell it. That same year, the USDA still paid them $20 million.
This is ridiculous. This is actually ridiculous.
As of March 31 of this year, 2024, the U.S. has 1.4 billion pounds of cheese in cold storage.
Can we not? Like, can we not? Can we collectively just decide to not on that? Can we put something else in there? Like, I'm sure the space could be used for something else and the food can go to people who need it. Like, can we not?
And that is my tasty morsel for this episode.
Tasty morsels, activating my lactose intolerance. Jeez. Okay, yeah. That I'm gonna have to read that article. Oh my gosh, that sounds crazy.
March 31, 2024, 1.4 billion pounds of cheese. And it's privately owned, but we're still paying for it.
Cheese should always be publicly owned. Cheese is for the people. Cheese is for the people.
I mean, we are paying for it with our taxes.
That's true. Yeah. Actually, yeah.
But it's not ours. Privately owned.
Nope.
Yeah, we're paying for them. Yes, with our tax dollars. To hoard cheese.
To house the cheese. Jeez Louise, that's a lot of cheese. Because we don't even know what kind of cheese it is. Is it like, are we talking cheddar? Are we talking gouda? Are we talking ghost pepper cheese? You know, we don't know. We don't know. These are questions that we need answered. And I'll get those answers.
Think about when you go to the supermarket and you pay for cheese, you've already paid for it with your taxes.
I did that today. Dang. Okay. Well, the more you know.
That's my tasty morsel. This is the tasty morsel you wanted, and I don't know if you really wanted it, but just like those croquettes, you're getting it anyway.
I know. I'm conflicted now. I'm conflicted. I feel like it, my eyes are opened, but I want to go back to sleep. Well, thank you for sharing it. I do appreciate that. I have been asking, for everyone listening, I've been asking for that tasty morsel for a while. I saw the headline and I was very, very curious. So now we got that. Well, that does bring us now to the very end of our episode. We would like to thank you for listening to us, for going along on this Top Chef journey with us. If you'd like to find us on social media, you can look up Food and Dine or Food and Dine Podcast, and you can listen to us wherever you listen to your podcasts. We drop every Sunday after Top Chef airs. We'll see you next time. Welcome to the table. Let's eat.